I'd like to start with the Traditional Territories Acknowledgement. The University of Manitoba campuses are located on the original lands of the Anishinaabe, the Cree, the Oji-Cree, the Dakota, and the Dene peoples, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. We respect the territories that were made on, the treaties rather, that were made on these territories, and we acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past, and we dedicate ourselves to move forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. So I also forgot to introduce myself, but I'm Kjell Anderson. Of course, I'm the director of the Master of Human Rights program here at Robson Hall, and I'm also the chair of this event today. And I'm really excited about the event, actually. I think it's a huge opportunity to have everybody here, particularly Grace and Evelyn. Thank you. I mean, on a more personal note as well, thank you so much for sharing your stories. And I know how difficult it can be to go back through these difficult experiences. And Evelyn Amony in particular has also helped me with my own research. But I'll introduce them properly in a second. I just wanted to say that right now. And I think the event today brings together at least two critical issues, which is really the experience of women and children in armed conflict and also transitional justice. And what I want us to think about today really is how these two things intersect, how these unique experiences relate to post-conflict justice initiatives in the way we look at justice after mass violence. And this, I'll introduce Annie Bunting, in a second as well. But this project, this event, I should say, is also rooted in the Conjugal Slavery and War project, which Professor Annie Bunting will say something more about in a moment. But it's really exciting, I think, also because to me, it's a kind of model of community-facing academic research, really, bringing together scholars, in fact, from many countries, many of whom aren't here today, obviously, as well as the people who've directly experienced conjugal slavery, as well as, of course, curators like Isabelle Masson from the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. So we'll be hearing from all of them today. And we'll begin, well, we have a pre-beginning, and I'll introduce also Erin Baines to say something also about the products that we're also selling today, or I should say that Grace and Evelyn Acan are selling.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So I just wanted to point out there is a booth with beautiful handcrafts at the back, and that the holiday seasons are upon us. It's the time of giving and purchasing. So these are all handmade by the women that Evelyn and Grace work with. They're all survivors, and they're beautiful beads. I'm just going to hand them around so you can have a look. And after the panel, please come on up and do your purchases.
Thank you. And Erin, of course, has also been instrumental to this whole thing and has worked for many years in northern Uganda with Evelyn and Grace and the Women's Action Network as well. And also, just on the level promo, I have books from both Grace Acan and Evelyn Amony here today, or I don't have them, I should say. They're also at the back table. So if you're interested in learning more about their stories, which is surprisingly a rare thing, I think, to hear from people who are actually involved in these things. I mean, usually these books are written by outsiders, and that's really what makes it so incredibly valuable, I think, as well. And I also want to thank off the bat the event sponsors, which are the Center for Human Rights Research, of course, here at the Faculty of Law at the University of Manitoba, as well as the Department of Anthropology, as well as the Conjugal Slavery and War project, which Annie Bunting will speak on in a moment. So, of course, on our panel today, besides myself, most importantly, we have Evelyn Amony and Grace Acan, of course, both from Uganda, as well as Isabelle Masson from the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. So maybe let's give them a welcome right off the bat, actually. It's a long way to come, obviously, to Winnipeg. It's chilly right now. Evelyn is incredibly pregnant. All these things are difficult factors that we have to consider. So thank you again for coming. So perhaps, Annie, you could say something about your project, and then we'll hear a bit from Evelyn and Grace, and as well as Isabelle, and I'll also speak very briefly on transitional justice before we have a panel discussion and then some questions as well.
Thanks so much, Professor Anderson, and welcome everyone. Good morning, I guess we're in the afternoon now. It's one of those days. Started early with an interview en français à Radio-Canada, so I hadn't had quite enough coffee for that. As Kjell said, my name's Annie Bunting, and I direct a 5-year SSHRC partnership project, which is a collaborative research project that includes partners across 10 countries, 4 universities, and 6 community-based non-governmental organizations. And as Kjell said, we have the University of British Columbia, including Professor Aaron Baines. We have researchers who work themselves with community-based organizations who do support with survivors of conflict-related violence. And we work in particular in Sierra Leone, in Liberia, Northeast Nigeria with DRPC, Eastern Congo with Sofapadi, Rwanda with Savota, in Uganda, and I'm forgetting a country, Nigeria, Liberia, Sierra Leone, who am I missing? Yeah, did I say DR Congo? Okay, Rwanda and Uganda. I probably missed Uganda. And so this is actually an extraordinary opportunity for us to share our research and hopefully some of what you can see as the ways in which we're trying to disseminate that research and really use research for social justice and storytelling for social change. So the panel comes together. As you know, you all had to wait 2 weeks because of Canadian visa processing. So when you ask that question of Grace and Evelyn, what you can do, then perhaps you can always mention to your members of parliament that our discriminatory visa processing could be seriously improved because they tend to delay visas for our international visitors to the point where often they miss the events. But because of the incredible organizing of Helen Faulding and Professor Karen Busby and everyone here at the Center for Human Rights Research at Robson Hall, we were able to move the event. Oftentimes, of course, you can't move a conference and your international collaborators miss that date. So I'm going to just hand it over to our panel and to your chair. But before I do, I just encourage you to have a look at some of the research outputs on our website. If you're working in the area, you're always welcome to contact us. We have been doing work around 4 themes. We try and do a documentation of the diverse experiences of survivors of conflict-related violence, put those experiences into historical context. So we work with historians of slavery. And the other 2 themes are around the experiences of children born of war and of men. And those are, again, in addition to the complexities and the diversity of experience that men and women have, we have often not talked about the experience of children born in conflict situations. So we just recently concluded some qualitative interviews in Uganda, Liberia, and Sierra Leone with young people who are now in their late teens, talking about their sense of belonging, their sense of kinship, their attachment, or in fact their displacement from their homes, and what their particular needs are as distinct perhaps from their parents. And so I know that Evelyn and Grace will talk more about this, but it's one of the 4 themes in our project. So with that, I'll hand it over to our very able panel. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Annie. So let's move directly to hearing from Grace and Evelyn, and we'll begin with here with my friend Evelyn. If you want to say something about, well, whatever you want to talk about, I suppose, about your experience.
I'm Evelyn Amony. Hi everyone, I am Evelyn Amony. I'm going to translate. She's speaking in the local language. Annabelle tena Kjell ma elare mara ke mara na tiki mara pario. I was among the children who were abducted by LRA when I was 12 years old. Ma pia ke mara na ti down bolu nyurina babana giri mama na we ono giti ka Kjell. Before I was abducted, I was living with my parents who were living together as well. Into 1994, Karmada Poka Kilo Nyurina Pahawe 2005 ya no kare me ake ching LRA. I separated with my parents from 2004 until 2005 when I got the chance to escape from the Lord's Resistance Army.
LRA otera i Sudan kanya patwer beru ki ker mi rwata kilo nyorina.
The Lord's Resistance Army rebels took me to South Sudan where I was not able to meet my parents.
LRA obera dwi joma gilwenyi kum government chagwaka ti wen LRA chakano ti joka ma penyang ngoma ti lorikum.
I may be talking about LRA. LRA is a group of rebels that's fighting against the Uganda government. Sometimes I may be speaking about this and picking like that. Yeah.
Gena tino mia tina ti Canada kan. Ena ye 2005 ma adonyi ambus LRA ochela rachaj maroma para rio ento ki gumpar ba ukonya miyo pa no red ento ba ma ruga ye uye ya tata chi ki bara non gene ni pere tek total umiyo ki kelo skata ene museum mati Canada kan.
The reason I'm here today is because in 2005 when I entered an ambush, I survived death by 12 bullets. I was shot and my skirt had all holes, and I brought that skirt here at the museum. And that's why I'm still alive, able to speak to you today.
Kigino kene bene ma duga no para mu lok tiene ka paro kanya kiye ki ngomu time kum kwana chunya no chuere da kile win maka tien an mala tien matira woro kite kar mate maloy duje ye red.
When I returned, I wasn't in a position to talk about what happened to me because I was so sad for being taken as a child and even being raped.
Ento ngi choy buka ni buk en ma wunu nana no mina kera de dai kom kwana kere beti kwoti ye lung kere chere ento tiar store na mi akera de da wow alogo mati agonya ki bena ngeoni ikwo wanga jema polo ngole ye.
But after writing this book, I got the courage. Much as life is full of ups and downs, I know I will keep on moving like that.
Ento gena wi ape wilie ki bot LRA ye karma in 2004 LRA ki government me Uganda lobe ma papad gripe me bieno ka lwenyi kom LRA nero oni nero ma ki mako kere nyara wa kumbiri chawani furati ka pare pange kanyatiye.
What I cannot forget is that in 2004 when different countries united with the Ugandan government and they went to fight the LRA, that was when I lost my daughter, and up to now I don't know where she is. I am still looking for her.
Kerebeti kameno anoni miar wadon dur pimege kibene wile bunge raj palweng.
Even if so, we are advocating for justice for women, and we have to make the world know that war is dangerous.
Kibene mirawa madietieni miar ki jok mahole teno balo kwan pale teno tero gi lum fonyo gi medalo lwen gen maraja da ke lar miar gi ki komwa.
Our interest is that war should be stopped, abductions of young children should be stopped, and war must stop with us.
Chi mapole ke do ngata miar niang lo koma maduong twero no na ki buk ene pichawa manok kone ke down ti kila pen cha da ya fa.
Everything is in detail in my book, and later if you would like to learn more, you can get it from there, but because of time, I wish to end here. In case later, if someone has any questions, you can ask them.
So perhaps, Grace, you can take over.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming here. Thank you. Yeah, I'll I would like to share briefly about like what we did in pursuit of justice for women who were affected by war. I was one of the girls. I was then a girl in 1996 in a school where the Lord's Resistance Army stormed my school just one night and took away like about 139 girls and just picked 30, and I happened to be one of the 30 who stayed with them for 8 years. So I managed to escape in 2004. I came back with a baby girl. I was then 16, but I returned and I went back to school. But during my vacation, I was involved in a work that like involved women who were affected by war. So after the project was done, we came out with, we realized there were issues that women who were affected by war were facing. Others was things like rejection by family members, rejection of their children. Some were stigmatized. There were challenges educating children born of war. And the major thing was that many of the mothers who returned, many of the women who were abducted as girls returned as women, and they had not completed their studies, so they have challenges in getting a means of livelihood. So those were the challenges we discovered during when I was working I was volunteering with an organization in a project called Ododowa, which then Erin Baines was taking lead on through Justice and Reconciliation Project. So after discovering that, we sat and that's why we came out with Women's Advocacy Network. But in the process then, I also decided to, I was writing a book as well. And I also got healing out of that. When I go back to my stories, the first script that I wrote, it's hard for me to believe that some of those things are the things that I passed through. But I think after writing it, I felt better. So all through this work, I learned that justice to someone who has suffered war is addressing the immediate need that such a person is going through. So when you ask, I interacted with many of my friends who were abducted as well. They would say, what's the point of going to court if my child is not going to school? If I have nothing to eat for dinner, what's the point of going to take someone to court? So to the women, justice is addressing their immediate need, which vary from person to person. And in that process, we did not just keep quiet with that. We kind of petitioned the parliament of Uganda to address the post-conflict issues of the women or people affected by war in northern Uganda. But then we are still waiting for their responses. They were great promises, but we are still waiting because they keep on saying, then when we submitted in 2014, they were positive, but we didn't have a transitional justice policy in place. It was just of recent when, I think in June, when it was finally approved, but we haven't seen the content, so we don't know whether is it taking all the needs, most of the issues we contributed, so we are still waiting. We haven't seen what exactly is in the transitional justice policy, but we're excited. It's a process that has taken up, and it's progressing after having 6 editions earlier than that. So at least the 7th one we know has been approved, but we really would like to see it, and we like to see it implemented when we are still alive, because most victims are also dying because others need medical assistances. But how long will the transitional justice policy come out and be implemented so that they can save their lives? Yeah, and the children are growing. They need to go to school. Their ages of going to school so how long? So if we can maybe speak around that, and then try to find ways, to let our government also implement it faster. That would be really a great thing for us. Thank you so much. We'll be welcoming your questions.
Thank you, Grace. So I'll just briefly say something about transitional justice before I also let Isabelle introduce herself. So I don't want to go into too much detail here, but basically we're using the term transitional justice in a broad sense to really indicate the set of measures that happens after gross human rights violations, in this case in Uganda. So some of these things are legal things, some of them are less legal. The LRA in some ways, the Lord's Resistance Army, was in some ways unique and in some ways not unique. It's not unique in the sense it operated and continues to operate much like a regular army. It's got a chain of command, it's got a hierarchy, it's got rules, it's got structure. But on the more unique side of things, of course, the LRA has, on the one hand, has unique spiritual beliefs, but also is an army that in many times has been comprised substantially of abducted children and also abducted adults as well, like Grace and Evelyn. And so as we're thinking about transitional justice as well, of course, we have to, as Grace said, justice means different things to different people. So we have to think about what justice means in that kind of a context. So in Uganda, there was an amnesty bill way back in 2000, and basically everybody got amnesty, with the exception in theory of a few high-ranking leaders. In practice, almost nobody has been prosecuted, really, which I think is, it's difficult to say if it's in keeping with the interests of victims, because again, you hear different things from different people. But at any rate, the only two prosecutions have really occurred. In the national courts, there's the case of Thomas Kjell, which is happening right now. And Kjell, without going to the details of the case, he was a child abductee as well, accused of various, obviously, serious crimes, some of which relate to the Democratic Republic of Congo. So that case is ongoing right now. There was also a referral by Uganda to the International Criminal Court in 2003. And basically 5 people were charged there. Joseph Kony, Vincent Ati, Okada Diambo, Raska Lukuya, and Dominic Ongwen. Out of those 5 individuals, 3 of them are now deceased, it seems. Although, I could say Vincent Ati is dead, but it took a long time for that to be officially recognized. So basically all you're left with is Joseph Kony, who's still at large, as you might know. I'm not sure where Kony is at the moment. Is he in South Sudan? Do we know? Central African Republic. Let's go find him. No. Yeah, he's somewhere in that region anyway. Obviously, the group is moving in an area that's relatively lacking government control. So Joseph Kony is still at large. He was the overall leader of the group, of course. And Dominic Ongwen surrendered a few years ago. He's on trial now at the International Criminal Court. I won't say anything about my own work other than to say I'm also writing a book on Dominic Ongwen, which is also what Evelyn and Aaron, in fact, were helping me with as well. So Ongwen was also a child abductee, abducted between the age of 10 and 14, depending on who you ask, and it can be difficult to find records for these things. So he's been tried by the International Criminal Court for war crimes and crimes against humanity. That trial is ongoing. It will probably end in January or so, I've been told recently, at least in terms of closing arguments and that kind of thing. So that's what's happening in transitional justice on the kind of justice side of things. If people are interested, I can answer questions afterwards. I'm not part of the panel in terms of Dominic Ongwen. Besides that, of course, there have been all kinds of reconciliation mechanisms and programs, especially in terms of the reintegration of ex-combatants and ex-LRA into society, which of course is a big challenge, and I won't say much about that again because I'm sure Evelyn and Grace will also speak more on that. But just imagine being in the so-called bush for years, living a completely different life in a sense with different rules, although still with some sense of community as well and to some degree within the group. And then having to go back to society, often not having the chance to get an education and sometimes stigmatized as well and all the things that go with that. But I think Grace and Evelyn can speak much more to that, certainly, than I can. So that's all I'll say, just to give you a general background about the transitional justice framework. Oh yeah, maybe I should also mention, as Grace did, there's a new transitional justice policy in Uganda as of June, I guess it was. We're still figuring out how that actually works, what it actually means in a concrete sense. It seems that amnesty is going to now be more contingent on people having to say something about what they did, but that's, in the case of people who are perpetrators, but we don't really know. It seems that reparations will also be a bigger part of the picture, but again, we don't really know. This is just kind of reading the tea leaves based on what's in this, this pretty general document as well. So with that, I'll pass you on to Isabelle to talk about Ododowa and the collaboration on this unique project. There's no clickers, so I guess I just use the mouse.
Is that from the desktop? I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay. That's okay. That's okay. Yeah. So I can stay. So, hi everyone. My name is Isabelle Masson. I'm a curator at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. I joined the museum in 2010 as the curator who was responsible for the content in the gallery Rights Today on level 5 at the museum. And I had the great privilege to work in collaboration with Evelyn Amony and Grace Acan, and in partnership with Conjugal Slavery in War. For the last few years, I think initially, if we think back about the process, I attended a panel much like this one in a way 3 years ago in Toronto, where many that had been organized by Conjugal Slavery in War, where many survivors, some of the women involved in the research and expert were presenting on conjugal slavery, on their research and talking about their own personal experience. And from there, the collaboration evolved, and we set on a path of creating an exhibit. And so the exhibit was officially launched yesterday at the museum with a public event where Evelyn and Grace presented, and we had a panel discussion, if you will, in gallery, sitting just in front of the exhibit. So I have some photos. Those were photos mostly taken on Tuesday when Evelyn and Grace saw the exhibit in gallery for the first time, like this one, and then other photos that were taken yesterday at the launch event. So this is, if you go to the museum, this is what Ododowa, Stories of Girls in War, looks like. It has two sides. So this is the first side of the exhibit. Ododowa means our stories in Evelyn and Grace Luo language, Acholi and Lengo. And it was developed in close collaboration. And what that means, it means that we discuss which artifacts we would display. We discuss the wording, what the messaging and the words we will use. We research and discuss the images that are being displayed, all in thinking and in an ongoing conversation about the broad messaging that we wanted the exhibit to have. One thing that we realized really early on, and we could really start the research and the process by with the two memoirs that Evelyn and Grace had written, which was really useful. And also from there, thanks to the partnership, could have Evelyn and Grace come to Canada and conduct oral history interview. A lot of our work and our exhibit are based on these life stories interviews that we carry out with different individuals. We have a collection at the museum now of over 200 interviews with human rights defenders that are really the basis of the work and the exhibit that we curate. And so to that process, we created Ododowa. Some of the striking feature that you see right now are the drawings. The drawings, these drawings were made by survivors, including Evelyn and Grace, and they were the beginning, in a way, of a sharing process among a small group of survivors who drew LRA camps in order to start a conversation and a sharing process about their experience. And so we use elements of these drawings and created our design from these original drawings made by survivors. And you see elements of that. It was fascinating yesterday during the panel when Grace stood up and actually a question was posed from the floor asking, well, tell us more about the drawing. And Grace stood up and went through the drawing, sharing some of her experience by pointing to different elements in the exhibition. You see the photos. We also, and we see, you see as well a skirt that Evelyn wore when she was captured by Ugandan soldiers after 11 years of captivity in the LRA. And on the skirts, you see traces of the violence on that day. She was shot at, holding her 10 days old baby. And you see traces of that violence. And her grandmother held on to the skirt, Evelyn's grandmother. And so we were able to loan the skirt from her for the exhibition. The choice that we made in the messaging, the choice that we made in choosing which artifact to show were made in collaboration. They were also made to shift things from a focus on the graphic violence and the horror of their experiences to who they are, their own, and foregrounding their own voice and perspective on their experience, foregrounding their agency, their strength and resilience, the choice and decision that they made that allowed them to survive all these years in captivity, and it actually allowed them today to be outspoken, to write the book, and to become advocates for justice and reparation in Uganda now, which is a process that both Annie and Kjell spoke about so well, and Grace and Evelyn. And so that was quite important. That was that guided our decision making for the images, the messaging, the artifact. And what you see, the square that you see there, is a projection of films. We created 2 films from the interviews that we did and experimented with animation drawing to, again, move away from the graphic violence, the use of newsreel images of torture and violence and war, and use animation drawing to illustrate their stories. And so I have the films that I'd like to show you. They're quite short. And these films are projected onto the wall, mixed with the drawing in the exhibition. So this is the film that focuses on Evelyn's story.
One day in August 1994, Evelyn Amony was coming home from school in Gulu town, Uganda. She didn't know her whole life was about to change.
Jamano katika luanyi kumgamende me Uganda. Neno ene ma de dana bere kateme kitaki konya ene an makimaka kereni. Elare chier yo kipanga ntake meganu kar bibeto anwene utimbe wekla tiana na tiana ya chiele kian kibetiri peramu.
The angry rebels drew lines on the ground, which Evelyn's grandmother stepped over. Despite her pleading, they wouldn't let Evelyn go. For nearly 11 years, Evelyn was held captive by the Lord's Resistance Army, led by Joseph Kony.
But elare kiritiri ni wangi tiyo tepian. Ke kwarti utemo ganani jemo kibigu nyobe kinerio.
LRA leader Joseph Kony forced Evelyn to cook his food and look after his 2 sons. Evelyn had children of her own during captivity. Living in constant fear for their safety, she finally escaped the LRA.
In 2005, I do my chair, and I my chair. Nobody wanna out, yeah. He bought LRA. He go married up with Donny Ambus. Can I don't know? Can you be there for my
Evelyn and her children were taken to her hometown of Gulu, where they faced poverty and discrimination.
Karma wanna do, you jam a pull more Wacha noni miara wa nen yu ang'o ma watwero la kere kwa wa pi wa ken wa ng'age ma gitwero bini komwa.
In 2011, Evelyn helped start the Women's Advocacy Network in Uganda, which supports the needs of war-affected women.
Kere bede wa work e pera mukane. Oluto wa yen yu ang'o ma watwero bedo ka achil. Ma wang'eyo pera pa ng'ara achil ki keta litian ti kwa wile.
You might have noticed that we carried the concept of colors, the green of the skirt, as the leading color for that film. And this is the film that we did on Grace's story, and the leading color of this film is blue, because one of the artifacts in the exhibit is a school sweater from St. Mary's College at Boki, from where Grace was abducted in 1996. She was abducted wearing a blue sweater from the school, and the Aboki girls were often recognized during captivity because they still wore that sweater.
In the town of Aboke in northern Uganda, Grace Acan was a boarding student at St. Mary's College.
When one day my mom told me we were in another district, but my mom told me, Grace, there is a place, a school called St. Mary's College, Aboke, that I would like you to go to. It's a very nice girls' school.
Grace was proud to be accepted and to wear her blue school sweater, and she loved her studies. But in 1996, when Grace was 16, rebel soldiers broke into her school's dormitory. They called themselves the Lord's Resistance Army.
There you hear some of them speaking English saying, you come out, we won't do anything, open the door, we won't do anything. If you refuse, we shall bomb the dormitory.
The rebels abducted 139 girls. Most were soon released, but 30 remained captives of the LRA, including Grace. The girls were taken to the bush in northern Uganda and used as enslaved labor by the rebels.
For me, what I saw was like, in LRA, they favored men, and there's that culture that men are the rulers. They have the power to make a choice or to do what they want. So as a woman, you had to stay there and listen, follow. Yeah, so I think that was it. So as women had no voice. And this was opposite from what I was growing to be.
Grace was taken to Sudan and forced to marry a rebel commander with whom she had 2 children. She was in constant danger from the violence of war between the LRA and government soldiers.
Every single year that I was in Sudan, there was always an attack, or even attacks. It's twice a year, once a year on LRA.
During a military ambush in 2004, Grace escaped with her baby daughter and returned to her family.
People still cared for me like before, and yeah, that was what really made my life.
Grace went back to school and later graduated from Gulu University. She co-founded the Women's Advocacy Network in Uganda to help survivors seek justice.
With my interactions with the women for all these years, I see justice is justice to the women affected by war is addressing the needs, their post-conflict issues that are affecting them, and that's all.
And this is the other side of the wall that you see in the gallery. And here you see the sweater from St. Mary's College, Aboki. And you see also romance novels. Because we wanted to focus on the women themselves, their perspective and voice and the agency, we wanted different things to emerge that might have otherwise if we focus on graphic violence and the horror of it. And so those are romance novels that Grace loved to read as a 16 years old during her free time at school. And we were able to loan these from St. Mary's College in northern Uganda. The 2 artifacts that you don't see really well here, and that side of the wall, if the first side of the wall is a messaging about the experience of girls and women and war, and especially conjugal slavery and captivity in the LRA. That second part of the more focused on advocacy for justice and reconciliation, and in particular reparation for the women. So their current struggle and advocacy in Uganda. And two of the artifacts that you couldn't see very well are related to their time and experience after captivity. So on one side, you have a card that was sent to Grace just after, very shortly after her release, by the mistress of the college, wishing her well, with a very powerful message about the situation. And then you see a certificate of amnesty. And so if some of the artifacts, like the skirt and the sweater, were meant to focus the attention on Grace and Evelyn's experience, meant to focus on their strength and resilience, we chose an artifact like the certificate of amnesty in that context to also spark reflection about justice in post-conflict situation. What does justice mean? What does it look like for women and children abducted in war, women in particular, and girls when they return home? What do they come home to? And to make the point that this is an ongoing conversation and process in Uganda as elsewhere. And we had an event yesterday, I mentioned, in gallery that was really well attended. Grace and Evelyn shared their thoughts and experience with really powerful words, and I hope we can carry and continue that conversation here today. Two beautiful photos of them speaking at the event yesterday. And that's it. So I hope we can carry the conversation. Thank you.
So thank you, Isabelle. Maybe I'll actually remove this if that's a bold move, maybe. But so we'll continue on with a panel discussion here. And I'd like to begin, maybe I should stand over here. Maybe it's strange if I stand behind you. But I'd like to begin with Evelyn and Grace. And we've talked a couple of times, obviously, about your books. But why did you decide you needed to write these books? And what has that process been like for you? What has it meant to you?
For me, I thought of writing a book. What sparked it off was after I read Ishmael Bayer's book. That one time when Erin visited Gulu, she brought the book and I wrote it. And I read. After reading, I was like, okay, I think he got the courage to read this, because I felt like he went through a lot, and he wrote it into detail. And I felt like, okay, I think I can write mine too. This story has to be known. And
Ismail Bey, I guess, was the...
Yeah, one of the child soldiers in Sierra Leone. Yeah, so that's what really inspired me. I said, I think I can. And having been given the opportunity, and I was in my vacation and volunteering, and I felt I was able to do it. I had that time. So I then started typing it like myself. Every day I would type, Erin is here. She would like, after every week I would send like, okay, view it. And so I started typing it like logically, like how it started. And sometimes during our break with those of Evelyn, and I had another colleague from the same school. So we would always like try to like go into stories that what really happened to each other, like we would share. So this would really make me remember more, and whatever I went through, like, so I would come, sit down quietly and type and type and type. But most importantly, I'm from Lira town. Lira is a district that's like south of Gulu. So we have there was a radio station that was bombed by the rebels, the Lord Resistance Army rebels. So when we got home, I got this information that it was being said that one of the girls from my school led the rebels to go and burn down the radio station. So I felt really so bad, and I was like, this is not true. I wish they had known what we went through during the war, how we were being guarded. We were never given the chance to come back to our own country. So how could we do this? How did we do this? So I felt that this was to write a book, really to explain to detail what happened to each one, to write what happened to us during our time in captivity. If they would get to know exactly what it meant, they would not have said that. So this really made me like, I wrote this book to correct the misconceptions that the community was having in about whoever was abducted. Yeah, to correct some of the things that they were saying which wasn't correct, and to also give them the right information so that whenever they're saying something, they should know that much as we are saying this was exactly what took place. I think that was the reason, and yeah, and also like to let the world know that war has very negative effects on girls and women, so it should be stopped. Yeah. That's what I
Thank you, Grace. Evelyn?
Kibora geno miya choy buok ma achiel na miete milobo ng'e rach alweny kibene anoni ka choy buok oluto konya mi yenyo kwene kanya latiana tiye.
For me, the reason why I wrote the book is that I wanted the world to know that war is bad, and also it will help me to search for where my child is.
Atam ne ka ker choj olu ng'at mo eken wilobni ka no kuri le tian ene olu to be wacha ne la tian mo na no kamunyo to twale le tian ma ke nywal ki kar me lweny.
I felt that after writing the book, if somebody reads maybe and happens to know where such children are, they can maybe contact me and say, okay, we got this kind of children here, and maybe I would get a chance to get the child.
Kibene na miete wilobo ng'e kata la nyoro dong kere ki chwe chwiny ke la tiana ke mako.
I also wanted the world to know the pain that parents feel when their children are taken away from them.
Kibene genu ke mo na miete dano ku ng'e ye kita lu dugu karu ret kere kom dano balo kere dul kom dano to twale yin dago ke dong tinu ngun rip kere ki koni nywal jim egoni weng pe pore dul kom mon.
I also wanted the world to know that to know about how bad the gun can destroy people's body parts. For example, if you are a woman and you are amputated, and then again you have to give birth and you have to do other kind of things. So I just wanted the world to know that.
Kikeno kana mona mete wilobo ng'e ye ni mono kiet ma dano dong kere ki peko ke kata ka ien futi maka ki teri chi adwi kata iberu kere ki luoro kata iberu ki tam kata dong kere keni nen we ngata mo matwer be kunyi peke kanya ne twer dak ye pe tiko beru ki luoro kum kuoni kamena.
I also wanted the world to know that feeling, that experience, that when you're abducted, you are in fear, you live constantly in fear, you have no one to turn to, you are completely without anybody who can help you, desperate.
Ma gika na miete mono ngeni kere geno mono time maraje kuoni ka pe tiaro kanya leng kita dong kere ka rem eto ke tiaro kanya leng yini kumi bene no kita wi yue kere kita kuoni laka kere kekeni.
I also wanted the world to know that it's very good to talk about what happens to you, what happened to you. After saying it, you can feel better than before. Yeah, you can feel relieved.
An mo no fut pa choy buke na tiki para mapod nge choy buke atiki ker mitimo gimoke ken piano le win mara atam ne ka ti wot ngar mo ken ngeni ki rapping an ngar mo ken ngeni a beru la luen jim ego no nwan wiere da ente nge choy buk ter story na mina kero mi mete ki ngoma twar timo na nyim kere beti pa kwano atiki gen fratwar timo gen jimi moy ken matwar timo ne timon
before I wrote my book, I was afraid that whenever I was walking, I would feel like people are saying, oh, she's useless, she was raped, she has nothing. But after writing, I felt the courage that I can do it. I still have the courage, much as I've not gone to school, I can still change my life, can still move on. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, also what I can add is like, I think after writing the book, I also wanted whoever is affected or whoever is suffering or whoever is down in any way, to know that after anything happening into your life, any negative thing, you don't have to sit there, you have to get up and move on. That is not, you don't have to remain in the same spot. You can still be helpful in any way or the other. So I feel like by deciding, for example, I left a 14-year-old child and I went back to a 14-month-old, and I went back to school, and I continued until I finished, and it wasn't an easy thing. So it was not easy because I felt like I was the best person who can give her all the love, and I didn't trust anyone else. But then I also realized that education is important. I would move forward. I would do something. I would maybe change even her life if I'm educated. Despite all that happened, I decided to leave it behind. So this is like a lesson to everyone who is undergoing any challenge in life, in any part of the world, that you don't have to stand there. Even if at school it's so hard, it will always come to an end, and you will get through it. You can be somebody. There's always life after anything. That's what the message I wanted the world to know.
We will begin a Kjell I think in more Kjell and your water, tiening, Kenano yard kiton, Terreluere footier, yard any lot my paraberium, Roma yard monument of footica dawny. The lock a phone one a keribeti gimono worry come quone, Firiram I, Timum, Roma can add one more berugang.
And I have this belief and have this saying in my culture that when a tree is cut down, it can still grow, and it brings those very fresh leaves like a newly planted one, and it grow up in the same way. So that means even if something happened in your life, you can still do be like the rest who are not affected, live like that. Yeah.
Thank you, Grace and Evelyn. And kind of building on what you're saying now, in terms of trying to move on and to make something positive out of this difficult experience, I wonder if you could say something. I know you're both co-founders of the Women's Advocacy Network. If you could say something about the work you've done and what it's meant to you.
I'll highlight some of the work we did, and then the importance as well. In the process, we have done community dialogues, and during community dialogues, we would highlight issues that are affecting women in a particular area, war-affected women, for example, when they're being stigmatized. We would talk, bring together community members, plus the affected people, plus the leaders, and then we explain to them what it means to be taken into the bush. We would tell them, we were taken while you were here. You didn't prevent us. You couldn't bring us back. Now we are back. Now, what's the point of saying you are no longer my child? I was your child before, but why is it not now? And so somehow, to change their perceptions. That was one. We also did what we called to let you know, in our culture, a child always belonged to the paternal side. So for this case that happened during the war, whereby children were born to the rebels who had not actually legally married these women. And so coming back into the community, somehow culturally it is not accepted. But so children get challenges in that. They're normally not affected, and some women are rejected from their families. So we also do dialogues around that. And there's another activity that we do that is called child tracing, whereby because these children are now growing up, they're now teenagers, so they begin asking now, Mom, where is my paternal side? Where is my dad? Where is? So you would just say, yes. You would explain to the child that this is what happened to me. I was taken and given to this man. Unfortunately, some of these men who these women were given to they really were open, and they disclosed where their families are. So this has been helpful. We would then contact the families, mediate, and then we say, okay, if the child is willing, both families, the maternal and the paternal family of the child is willing, then we would just like take them to know the families. If they can assist, then they can. If they cannot, so but the child will have known that this is my home and can go there much as, So that's the kind of thing we are trying to do. Maybe Evelyn can add something else again.
Gena mer merina yena watimo radio talk show. Wakelo mege chalo mege mogo mogo berati concern parent mano one foot pia wadugu. Kita gen be guberka yele we wan be waduk pajo wakelo gi radio pian lo nyor mu kan go kwali tian gene pian go rilu. Chika wakelo gi en ngarma dak logo ma chuo chuin lu nyalo kan mier gen bengo o gam ni tian go gam.
One activity that we did was radio talk shows. We would, because there was an organization that was formed called Concerned Parents Association. So these were like a group of parents whose children were abducted, so they kept on advocating for the release of other children. So we'd bring like these mothers on board because to share their experiences, what it means to accept a child in the community. And so this would encourage community members to accept those who are rejected in communities.
Kibane walu lutela chala lu fonye dini ruori mi konyo gibene lokke gipian ti jomo lu nyor mu kan go kwale tian ge mago moko tam ge wa pingo yin ri lu mi du kile tiano ke yen ga ni kare le tin ni ti olo ke go wunyu ki bol lutela la tam ge.
Yeah, we would also bring on board religious and traditional leaders, because these are people who are hard, like people listen to them in communities. So we get them to speak to some of these parents who had actually totally decided to say, no, my child, why did you take so long in the bush? First find a way, find where you can put these kids, then you can come back to me as my child. So these religious leaders would speak to such parents and then and get them to really understand the circumstances and accept their own children back again. We also did on ending stigma.
Thank you. Maybe I could kind of build on that point as well. And you just mentioned stigma, but I'm wondering what kind of stigma survivors of the LRA have faced, and maybe in particular women.
Yeah, like when you're living in a community, and then when you go to fetch water, they say, okay, the other one, there's a specific term they used to refer to someone who was abducted. Actually the term is returnees, like, so when they say, like in the local term, it sounds, you just know that this is a returnee from LRA. So, because there was a program called Come Back Home in my local language. So when you hear about Come Back Home, it was like a program that was on radio calling upon those who are still in LRA captivity. So it involved like those who have returned to speak on radio that would be heard, that the rebels would hear, and whoever was abducted and in captivity would hear, and they would come back home. And indeed in 2004, 2005, they got many people to return home. So that's why they call like the Come Back Home program. So when you hear anyone in a community saying, "Oh, you look at you return back," the word is Dukchen Pajo, which means like come back home, like you are someone who just came back home, you know. Like that means you were you are abducted and you did something. It is attached. It's a negative way of saying like So you just know, and you'd feel bad in communities, and even the children themselves. Recently, I was in a program with the kids, and one child told me, you know what? You know, like an 18-year-old boy saying, you know, they tell us that we were born in the bush, and being born in a bush is not a normal birth like any child who was born here. It involves something unique. But I told them no. This is like a very negative way of like, so these kids will feel so low that they cannot do anything in the community. They are not worthy to actually live in the community and actually interact with anybody else because they were uniquely born. Like, I told them this is, no matter where you are conceived or born, it's still the same birth. It's a woman giving birth and to a human being, and it was conceived by a human being, so you don't have to feel a very negative thing. Much as it was not your mother's intention to be taken away. Please just take it in a positive way and move on. If you are studying, concentrate on your studies, just for your better future. That's the best thing. Don't think about the nature of birth. Don't let it affect the whole of your life. So this is the kind of thing maybe we need to like keep encouraging these kids to do, so that they are not psychologically affected, and they get that low esteem, you know, like, yeah, so that's
And also on that point, I know there was recently a petition from women in Uganda to the parliament. Can you say something about that in terms of reparations?
Afaya, in 2014, watero petition mamekwe parliament. Ti dog lok mano watiga wanene government ramuti mone kine chulu tiano gangkwan rocho kwowa.
In 2004, we presented our
14.
petition. In 2014, we presented our petition to the parliament because we had specific issues that we wanted the government to address. For example, rebuilding our lives, paying our children in school, providing medical care. Like there are like 10 of them that we felt the government would do.
Kibene wanono ni government po gwawa mio elario makwa. Kibene wanene government president wa furga ena cheli telo kene yitwar timu gimo wekwan oluto wa bed marama ki jomu kane ata wa komberi chawane futwa tika korne.
We felt like the government failed to protect us, and it's still the same government that is there. So we felt they can do something to correct this, so that we are also accepted in the community, and we live like the same life like other people are living.
Thank you. And I'll ask a question now to Isabelle. I don't want Isabelle to feel too lonely there at the end of the table. But it was quite fascinating, both today and yesterday, when you were talking about how you chose these artifacts and kind of how you carried the color themes through. I know Annie also mentioned yesterday just how much of a learning experience it was as an academic, thinking about curation and thinking about how objects can actually tell stories. But I'm wondering, why did you choose and how did you choose those particular objects, the sweater, the skirt, the romance novels, the amnesty card?
Thank you. It was a long process of thinking about, first when you do artifact research, you have to know your subject matter well, in a sense, for instance, knowing the books very well. And after that, carrying out the interview, it's hours of interviews, and then which are boiled down to a few clips, right? But again, it's that you have a whole lot of material to work from, and then to be guided by this material and by ongoing conversation with Grace and Evelyn, and ongoing conversation with Annie and with Véronique Bourget, who's at the back, who's the project coordinator for Conjugal Slavery and War. And those ongoing conversations are about what we want to say and what will be understood from the story if we choose those specific objects. And I think a lot of the elements in the selection came from your stories. I take, for instance, the sweater. In her book and in her interview, Grace has more than one story related to her experience that are connected to the sweater. And so as you go about the content, I was struck with all of these artifacts. I was actually quite struck at a moment that these could tell those stories in different manners, and actually not just one story, but several stories. And so in terms of creating an exhibit, often there's layers of meanings, and you can take in one part of the messaging, but you can actually continue and think and ask questions and get to those other layers. And I don't want to speak for Grace. Grace, do you want to share some of the stories related to the sweater as an example?
Yeah, the sweater, for example, reminded like me of the love that the other fellow students who went away left us with. They felt so sad seeing us go as they go back home. So some of them shared their sweaters with us. This was the only source of warmth we had. This was the only thing that would really make anyone who was hiding somewhere, seeing us moving, someone would see. And then these people, because all of us had sweaters. And again, in the year 2000, when I had a baby, we were in this cold, mountainous area, and there was nothing. I didn't have anything that was warm for the baby, so I had to cut this sweater, my own, and then I made a smaller one that can fit him, like to make him like feel warm. So this was really like, yeah, it carried like several things in my life. That's all. It reminded me of my school as well, much as I was away from school. Yeah.
Thank you. And we didn't talk about it today, but and we'll switch to general questions in a moment. But I'm also wondering about the jerry can. I mean, obviously I know a little bit about this, but what did a jerry can mean in the LRA? What did it mean for you? A jerry can, like a plastic jug.
Yeah, that was important for carrying water, because sometimes you'll find like a source of water today, and then you stay like for 2 days without getting any source of water, and the climate is hot and you need to take water. So if you don't hold it, nobody will give you theirs. So you have to really carry that water and move with it. Whenever you need, you give it, you take. So it was important for that. Like Evelyn said yesterday, the grinding stone and the jerry can was something very important. So the grinding stone we would use for making flour. Say out of the maize, you just like practically grind flour out of the maize or from millet to make flour, so that you can either make porridge out of the flour or like mingo bread out of the flour. Yeah, during the time for making food. So with the jerry can, you bring water for cooking all this food. So these were very important things.
And so as we chose, for instance, the grinding stone as well that is displayed in the exhibit, the grinding stone speaks to their experience of their daily lives in captivity, the daily labor that they had to perform in order to survive and were forced to perform. So this grinding stone sits underneath Evelyn's skirt in the display. And so that display together, I mentioned layers of meaning because they connect to different stories, but when you create an exhibit, a big part of the work is knowing all of this content and choosing how you relate different aspects of the experience. So for instance, in the drawing, and I'm thinking back to the jerry cans and the water in terms of carrying things, the fact what they missed, what they didn't have, food and water, and how a lot of the experience was walking in the bush and in mountains for hours and day on without water. And if you look at the drawings in the exhibit, you see them quite clearly in that row of mountains. You see women carrying babies and weight on their head. You see these lines of soldiers and women and people. And so part of the experience is expressed in the design, and then the artifacts support that messaging and complement that story. And so some things were not, basically I'm saying that some things we're not saying in words. Some things we use artifacts to say, and some things are said in the films. And that's quite an intellectual exercise to do, to make those decisions and to make decisions as to what can be effectively relayed to an artifact and what you will use words for, knowing that you have very few words, often not more than 20 words or 100 words to say things. And I see Annie laughing. Tell us why you are laughing.
Yeah. To tell an academic to say something in 100 words is
It's a challenge.
It's a challenge, yeah. But it was really a good challenge.
It must have been strange as well. I don't want to take too long so we have time for some questions, but I'm just imagining Grace and Evelyn, or I can't imagine maybe seeing your personal stories and your personal possessions as a museum exhibit. What was that like? That must be it must be a strange experience, I think.
Kibora winya gonya piane pere tek tutwal pijimi oni kibara piani ang'eyo ng'o mutime ni oni poyo wiya kata gene eno time kere kata rubang konya kere.
To me, I feel free like having them here because it reminds me of what happened to me that day, that specific day when I see this cat. It reminds me exactly of that.
Thank you. Grace, do you have anything to add? You don't have to, but if you...
Yeah, like I said yesterday, for the card, it's a source of encouragement to me. Like now, if I read those words, like I feel a lot of strength. Like I get a lot of strength to move on in life. Especially the Psalms 23 that was taken. Do not be afraid. I will be with you, even if you walk through the deepest water. So I think that I was in the deepest water. So like okay, then I am not alone. It gives me like courage to move on. So.
Great, thank you. And just one final thing before we get some questions from the audience, and maybe my assistants, my helpers, can also come down here and pick up the microphones now or soon, I suppose. So I just wanted to also ask a question about the Conjugal Slavery and War project in general, and what kind of findings have you seen so far? What kind of themes have come out of the project? I'm thinking in terms of things like masculinity, and also the role of children, the identity of children born of war.
Well, I think you can speak to the fathers and Grace can speak to the children.
Like all the issues of like children, because we have like a section of like connected to children born of war. There is one connected to women, and then the other one of men. Evelyn can talk about it. On the children, we discovered like children are affected. They're mostly attached to their mothers because they feel these are the only relatives, the only person close to them, and they feel so sad. They are scared of the future in case their mothers are not around. They're willing to really to go to school, but they're facing challenges. For example, school fees, and then like stigma in school. And generally there is a problem with acceptance in the community that the children are afraid of. Even can talk about on the side of men.
Apoyo. Mwahario ng'e chabera tikicho. Umiya ng'eyo ni peka pacho bene tie ikine tiriemo gi bene ki ng'om.
2 years ago, I was working with the men, so I discovered that they also have similar challenges. For example, they are also sent away from the land they're supposed to inherit.
Peka mukene magati kwere gi pe ki kero me yenyo kanyo ni tieno gi tie pian mogono dagno miana tien mo nywal ke no dugo chon gen no tek twal mi cher ka penyu lu nyur oni ke gram na ni tieno ge pian family chan gi kero ni gena yo berlo mak mi tera nyera ni lum.
The second is that they also faced a challenge trying to unite with the children they bore in captivity, because the women they were given during the war could have come back earlier than them, so they face a challenge going to contact the parents of this girl, because they are afraid that they will say, okay, you are the ones who abducted my girls, you violated my girls, and now you're coming to ask for these kids. So like they're afraid to kind of make that connection.
Ke pa po kana ma chore ti kwere ki lum kwanya nyaka mo ni beru kere kono mwane tiri ko mwane ni chirong luor tie pian cha mo kana no itekio mi cher ka wa ana ya beru won la tiene na ya nywal ki nyer gen no pe wache borlo nywal.
And the other problem is that, you know, while in the bush, some of these, like most of these commanders were really overaged, so they are given young girls, very young girls, really way very young girls are given to them, and so like they violate them sexually, and so they feel ashamed going at their ages, going to tell the parents of the girl that, you know, I'm coming to claim for my child, and then like looking at the differences in age, so they feel like maybe they will be also like prosecuted for that, like the violation.
Ke pa mo kana ma chore ti kwere mo kana be gudu ma pat kom ge mo kana chala tien ge nguno gino ker gi pe bene mi tiu tichu kan mi kele chane chingi.
Another challenge is that some of them came and they are amputated. They have amputated legs or limbs, and they don't have. They're not in position to do any means of do any work to give them a means of livelihood.
Ki bene pajron ke tie mieri nyom daka nyoma e oni be gen pe ki kero mi bino ka nyomo dak moni beru kere mu kana ti beru kengi.
And also when you're back home, unlike in the bush whereby any woman that has been brought is picked and given to you, so you just live with them freely like that. So, but from home you have to really marry them and really legally. So they don't have the means, they don't have the resources for marrying the women. So most of them are living single lives.
Ki bene Uganda kom kari chik tie ma kati ini beru ki nyawa ma tiri chik mare ti e oni be ti ka miyo luor to twali kwoge ki noni chagwaki ya nyim.
Also, they are afraid still of the age differences that they may be prosecuted for like what do I say, like engaging into like sexual contacts with young girls. They're afraid of being prosecuted for rape in future.
The commanders mukan tie mano utimu nyawa moni ma rete komenen mogono igo la ten nyawa moni mogono uberu kiri ento kito bera ter kere po berio mabe no poyo moni ini neno e oni bene tika mini gi luor gi tamne ngari en chagwa tiri maya mena nyo wone bikeme kere kitia.
Yeah, there were commanders who really were so violent. They actually tortured some of the girls, and you could see physically some of the wounds they left on them. So some of these commanders are also afraid to approach the girls and say, okay, they're afraid that maybe these girls would one day, or their parents would come to them and say, okay, maybe you have to face the court because you did this physical torture to my child. Yeah.
Thank you. So of course I want to make sure I give you guys a chance to ask questions of our excellent panelists. So we'll have one person on each side of the room passing a mic. Thank you as well to Danielle and, to Abby and Danielle. I know which one is which. They're both students in the Master of Human Rights program. Danielle, I'll actually give you my mic, and I'll just do the shouting because I think it's more important that these guys can hear each other. So does anybody have a question?
Hi, thanks so much for sharing your stories. That's really interesting, and I didn't know anything about this issue before today, so that's great. My question is, I did some research on amnesties in South America last year and in Colombia, and I know that the population was quite divided about how they felt about the amnesties given to some of the people from the conflict. Now, I hope I have this right. It sounds to me like there were broad amnesties granted in this situation, and I wanted to know how you personally felt about the amnesties given, whether they were too broad or whether they were about right or whether they were too narrow, and also how the people of Uganda feel about the amnesties.
Can I answer that straight away? Yeah. Okay. I think it was almost the same. It was a broad amnesty to anyone. I must say, when children who were born in captivity were given amnesty cards, some of them were given amnesty cards. People had mixed reactions. Personally, when I saw the form that you are supposed to fill before you are given the card, when I saw it written that you are being forgiven because you fought against the government of Uganda, you are being pardoned, that is it. So I was like, I'm being pardoned? What did I do? They failed to protect me while I was at school. I was taken away. I was dead asleep in my dormitory when they knocked at my door, and they carried me away from school when the government was there. So how did I fight the government? How should I sign? I refused to sign, so I don't have the amnesty card. So like during the amnesty, I think it was a general thing, and somehow there was a mistake that they did not give this card to everyone to read. And most people did not read this card well, so they just give you to, like, most people were abducted when they had not yet completed studies and were very young, so they don't know really how to read, so they would just come and give you the form you sign. Like, if you cannot read, so you don't know what the content is, so you just sign, you're given the card, you just say, okay, I'm being pardoned. So for me, when I saw this, I was like, okay, this is not right, and it was a general thing, not saying who did what or who has not done what. So it was like, it was the same case, I think. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for your presentation. I have two questions. I'm presently writing a paper on the significance or the role of acknowledgement and apology in transitional justice. And I just want to know your opinion. I mean, I know that you said that for you, transitional justice is ensuring that your basic needs have been met post-conflict. But I wanted to ask, so how important is it for you that the people who violated you publicly acknowledge that they did so and then make some form of apology? Is that very important for you, that they actually acknowledge it and they apologize, or just the reparation in terms of fiscal needs is enough? That's my first question. The second question is, I'm from Nigeria, so I'm not from the northern region where the Chibok girls were abducted, but some of the stories of the girls who were returned, there were some of them who had trauma bonded with their victim, with the perpetrators, and many of them wanted to return back to those camps. So in your advocacy work with Women Advocacy Network, have you had experiences of women who didn't want to be back in society, actually wanted to go back into those camps? Did you have any of such stories? Thank you.
Yeah, first, should I give the chance or answer? Okay, I will start with the second question. Life in captivity was so hard that everyone wanted to come back home. But the fact that it was hard to escape, because once you are known you're escaping, that was the end of your life. So really everyone wanted to get out of that life. But in our interactions, due to hardships back home, there were few mothers who actually said, because of the hardship I got at home, like I've been rejected by my parents, I felt like it was better back there. They never did it, but they felt like it was better going back where you don't have to really face discrimination, you know. But they never did it though. Yeah, it was just because of the challenges being faced at home. Yeah, and then the second question, I can remember what's about? Sorry, the first.
Maybe even the
Yeah.
question about public apology. Is it important to have
Oh.
a public apology?
Yeah.
Keyboard one victims were known miero dulario tutwale seta government miero bino kwa kija board wa pingom time kom kwa pien jema pol utime kom mon eto gamente pego ber ki kero me joko pero eoni ti wanoni pore jeno bino kwa kija board wa.
As victims, we feel both sides should come and apologize to us, especially the government, because many things happened to the women, but they were not able to stop it. So we feel it's important that they apologize as well. Just to add also something, I think that's one of the advocacy points that we presented to the parliament as well. We said we also need because we have some of these commanders moving on streets. You meet them every day. They're not supporting their children. They bore while in captivity. You look them, they violated you. They are there working freely. They're being paid by the government. They have jobs actually. Every month they're paid, and so yeah, it hurts seeing someone who made you that way, working freely and happily. So it's better for them also to apologize publicly.
Thank you. And I know there was a question at the back as well.
Very similar question.
What are you? Sorry, I don't know everybody's name, but
Oh, I'm not even in this class. Hello. I was born and raised in Uganda for 21 years, and I need to ask, for your organization, a lot of it I've seen is helping the ladies in Gulu and the ladies in Lira. How about the women who are displaced to the capital? Because part of the thing that I found in Uganda is that you're very silenced. Your stories are silenced. Every time there's a new campaign, every time something happens in Lira, they set on some sort of fire in the capital to silence everything. People are going out. are going through there. So my question is, does your organization reach down all the way to the capital, to the ladies that are there, to bring them back? Because now a lot of them are homeless. The same police you talk about kills their babies because they're on the streets. So yes, that's my question.
Like, what I can say is, it's a community-based organization, still growing. Our funding is still small, but we're trying to expand, though, not only Gulu and Lira, but Acholi and Lango sub-region. So we are moving slowly, and Teso, and West Nile, where this war took place. So it's like, yeah, with time, we hope we shall get there.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, ladies, for sharing your stories. I'm Nigerian, and I quite relate with everything you ladies have said today, because we also experienced something very similar. In 2014, same thing happened in Chibok, where 200 and something girls were taken away from their hostels. For me, I can just but imagine what you must have gone through. Because when I heard that story, I was scared. I wasn't in the center of it, but I was scared. I was in a boarding school as well. I could just imagine, okay, being in a boarding school and carried away by God knows men from where I don't know. At the time, I also had my children. I had 2 boys in boarding schools as well, and my daughter also in boarding school. Before the Chibok incidents, we had stories of, in our case, it's Boko Haram. They go to schools. For the boys' schools, they just went to their school and they slaughtered them. They just slit their throats while they were asleep. This happened, and later on, we had girls were abducted from their school. For me, it was out of fear. I actually moved out of Nigeria with my kids. December 2014, when this got to a head. So I can imagine what you, being in the midst of all this, must have gone through. I was not there, but the fear of what would happen to my kids, to hear that your kids have been abducted and taken away from school. I mean, I can imagine what even the parents must have been going through. This is not just trying to take away the discussion from Uganda to Nigeria, but just to say, I quite appreciate the fact that you're telling your stories. It's so important that these stories be told, because around the world, for instance, when it happened in Nigeria, we had international communities everywhere. There was this hashtag Bring Back Our Girls, but right now it's silent. There is fading advocacy. People are not talking about it. As we speak for Nigeria, there's still about 102 girls still missing. We're not talking about the Diapchi girls as well. But I mean, for the government, it's a failure of government for this to happen in the first instance, right? So for them to keep quiet as if nothing is happening, it's sad. But for me, seeing you talking about your stories, trying to move on, even making something positive out of the negativity, it encourages me. And I'm like, this is what we should be doing. What has happened. We have to move on. We have to tell our stories. We have to, for you, even looking for the children that are supposedly lost. I believe they will be found. It's a step in the right direction, and I really appreciate what you guys are doing today. I just learned about this program today, and I said, look, whatever it is, I must be here. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much. Thank you. And sorry, if I may just ask you a question. I've been a researcher for a while. I've been with the parliament and all of that. I just want to find out, what are you doing in terms of legislation and all that? What has been done to, maybe, is there a law that has been passed? I know there's something you said about that, but I didn't quite get it. If you could just throw a little bit more light. Thank you so much.
There is no law I can say, but what we did has a small group of women affected by war. We presented our petition to the parliament saying, look, we have girls and children girls who were abducted during the war, women, and there are children who are born in captivity, who are undergoing the challenges I tried to, so can you do something? Is there something the government can do to address these challenges that these women are now facing. So that's what we did. But we are still waiting, and there's no response because, like, as I said before, the transitional justice policy is just in the process. Like they said, like in June it was approved, but we haven't seen the copies, and it's not yet being used. So we are just still there waiting. So yeah.
So yeah, we'll have to wrap it up shortly, but we have time for one more question, I think.
It's a small question. So that your story is not in vain. I feel like this is a very important story. So everyone you tell this story should have an impact because it's your story. What can the people in this room, okay, me personally, as I sit in this room, do about your story to make it different? What impact can I have so that I don't just leave this room knowing that, oh, something sad happened and I go on with my life? What difference can I make? Is there something I can do? What did you hope that this room would do for you, maybe?
Jema pol magiramo timone konyo wachato teko yenyi yo mi chulo school fees ka chegi tiki kero mi konyo liteno mi kwo kibene ke wilo teka chiel rome miyo kero pinena rio I ara chiel pieni kit mi no cham ti yelo mege jema pol ma mer chene.
But there's so many things you can do. First of all, like for those beads, these are for the women who are affected. Like if you buy one, you'll have fed like a family for 2 days. Also, like helping them advocate, like what you know?
School
Yeah,
fees.
like if there's a way, if you can, also like the kids who are not going to school, if you can, yeah, that's it. So there's so many things you can do.
Genu kene ma uramo tima yemi konyo wai tielo ko wa loki style dressing yenyo kaka paleteno. Chamu keno ngarmo tiki kero. Itwer kupe ki bironi.
Okay, like supporting us also, like we also do something called child tracing. So if you can also support us, that you can link with those of Annie, those of Veronique, and then we, yeah. So they're like, there are several things we can do together. But personally, I can say, also leaving this room, it is not enough to listen, and then if you also tell a friend maybe having capacity to do something, yes, to support the women, that's fine. Yeah. Also, like with this, you can also encourage another person to be strong, someone who is so low. There's so many ways. Yeah.
You can also visit the exhibit, of course, if you want to learn more about all these things. So let me thank, again, the sponsors. Well, we'll get to the speakers in a second. For the Center for Human Rights Research in Karen Busby, the Conjugal Slavery and War Project, the Department of Anthropology at the University of Manitoba. I don't think I'm missing anybody, I hope. But most importantly, Afoyo Mate, thank you very much. Merci beaucoup to our 3 great panelists today. Thank you.